Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Marion Rose podcast and my ponderings on the Marion method, psychospiritual development, reparenting, reculturing, getting free from the disconnected domination culture, and where I share all kinds of things that I love, like barefoot shoes and buteyko breathing and bunnies. Here's a disclaimer. Please note that I'm sharing all this information outside my role as an aware parenting instructor and regional coordinator. This podcast is my own independent offering, and the perspectives and information I share here are my own, from my own experiences and understandings. The podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by Aletha Salter PhD or the Aware Parenting Institute. If you do want to hear my sharings about aware parenting, where I do share from my role as an aware parenting instructor, regional coordinator and parent, I invite you to listen to my Living Aware Parenting podcast. Here in the Marion Rose podcast is where I share about nearly everything else I love. This is where I'm going to be raw and simply me. I'm going to be sharing about my love of bunnies and rabbit holes, consciousness and exploring reality, and freeing myself from DDC conceptions and beliefs such as in relation to beauty and aging. I love being open-minded about things, literally exploring all kinds of different ways of seeing the world, reality and human beings. I've been exploring consciousness since I was 19 in 1987, and I love learning new things. Sometimes I might be sharing from my most soul-connected place of wisdom and presence. Other times you might find me giggling from younger parts of me. As you listen, I invite you to imagine we're hanging out together, and I'm sending love to all your feelings as you listen. Here we go. My hand and my heart are open here, inviting you on this journey together. Today I'm going to share about my journey with barefoot shoes and why I think barefoot shoes are so important, why I'm so passionate about them, why this is literally the third episode on my Marion Rose podcast. And not only in terms of how this is related to staying connected with our bodies, but also in terms of getting free from disconnected domination culture consciousness. As part of that, I'm going to talk about the history of heels and tapered toes and how I believe that relates to class and culture and all kinds of beliefs about movement and superiority. I'm going to talk about how my son helped me get free from my DDC conditioning in relation to shoes and our feet. I'm so passionate about this topic. I think it is so vital. And I really think in terms of if you're passionate about getting from DDC conditioning, exploring this topic can be so helpful. I think that shoes and fashion and our cultural conceptualizations of what's beautiful in relation to shoes is really a core way that the DDC is passed down, not only in terms of thoughts, but actually in terms of our relationship with our bodies, how present we can actually be. If we've got shoes that are constricting us, we often need to dissociate from the sensations in our feet, which disconnects us from the ground. It also affects our foot function, our stability, our posture, our gait, so many really important things. You'll also probably hear a little bit of wind, and if you're watching the video, you'll see that I'm outside here with my lovely red hat on to protect me from the sun. I think it seems to be very apt that this podcast is coming from outside. I was in my lovely new studio, but these lovely doggies, they're really happy to sit on the deck. As soon as I go into the studio, even with the loveliest snacks that they prefer, they scratch at the door and they want to come in there with me. And if they're in there with me, it's a small space and they're snoring loudly or snorting or scratching. So isn't that so interesting that I'm being invited to come out onto my actually also new beautiful deck with the wider balustrade for me to sit my computer and my microphone on. And I really trust that if you know my Marion method work and conversations with life, I really trust that this invitation is for me to be outside. So you'll see there'll be flies, there'll probably be kookaburras, there'll be various creatures. You might hear the noise of Harold, the water dragon, crawling along the roof. There's going to be lots of nature sounds, and this is clearly how this episode wants to be. So at the moment, if you're watching the video as well, you can see Wildling's Instagram. They're my favourite Barefoot Shoes, and they've got their 10-year anniversary. I thought that might be a nice place to start. But I'm going to share a little bit, first of all, about my own history with shoes and Barefoot Shoes. I'm going to share in more detail later on. But basically, I created bunions from wearing ice skating boots throughout my teens and stilettos, as was the fashion in the 80s. And in the 90s, Birkenstocks came into fashion in England, so I started wearing them. And when I moved to Australia at the end of the 90s, I went barefoot a lot and I wore flip-flops. If you're Australian, you would call those, what does he call those? Flip-flops. Thongs. So I then got into Vibram's 5-finger shoes. Now let me see if I shift to them, whether you're going to see that. So I then got into Vibram's 5-finger shoes when they came out in Australia, which I think was about 2007. And so this is a little bit of the history here of the Vibram 5 fingers. So you can see the man who invented them, Robert Fleary, I don't know how to pronounce his name, and this process that he went through to develop them. So originally they looked like this on the right here, and if you're not watching the video, each individual toe, they were very different to any mainstream shoe, so they really looked incredibly different to what anyone else was wearing. I then got into negative heel technology. So I got into this negative heel technology with this, what was called the Earth shoes, in about 2010. So there's a lovely website here if you're looking at the video, and the whole history of these shoes came right back from, where did they start? 1957 was the origin of these, with the woman called Anne Calso. I don't know how to pronounce her name either. And so there's this beautiful, I love fonts. God, how lovely the fonts are with each different age. And so these were this basically negative heel, meaning that the heel was lower. So it was really, again, this opposite sense. And I enjoyed that. I mean, I just wore them a little bit of the time. It was very helpful for me in terms of shifting some of the muscle tension and the muscle constriction I'd had from all of those high heels that I'd worn over the years. So that was my next exploration. So I'm going to talk a bit more about my history, but next I would love to share about my son, who really has been such a teacher in getting free from DDC conditioning. I'm having all kinds of interesting tech challenges. I'm willing for ease. I'm needing to start and stop. So what's next? Start and stop. So this is the next part. So here's a picture of me and my son. We had a fun taking photos, his dad taking photos of us both wearing our Wildling shoes. There's my favourite pair, the pink ones. So he is now 19, and in my journey as a mother, I have found that our children will often invite us to question our cultural beliefs, and often this will happen as soon as they come into our world, whether that's through pregnancy or adoption. Often this is a journey of really inviting us to question every step of the way whether the cultural beliefs that we hold are actually aligned to us, whether they fit with our values, whether we actually agree with them. So my children have taught me so many things. They've taught me that they learn naturally without ever needing to be taught. Through learning to listen unconditionally to their feelings with aware parenting, they've taught me to listen unconditionally to my own. By responding to them without punishments and rewards, I've learned to stop punishing myself with guilt and shame and self-judgment. By trusting them to follow their own passions and do what they love, I've learned to follow my own passions and do what I love. And what I've really found in supporting them these ways with aware parenting, so if you want to learn more about that, I have done my Living Aware Parenting podcast. Children brought up in these ways are more likely to naturally want to and be willing to connect and cooperate and contribute and be calm and gentle. They're also more likely to be willing to say no to what they really don't want to do, and to be unwilling to be coerced into doing things, because they stay more deeply connected with themselves. They're also more likely to be connected with the sensations of their bodies and to know when they feel cold or hot, or when something is not comfortable for their bodies, whether that's clothing or shoes. And so my example with Sunny, and actually with Lana too, my daughter, so when they were babies, toddlers, young children, I was already into, as I've shared, the nascent barefoot shoe world that was re-emerging from the DDC. So I bought him and my daughter soft leather shoes for their first few years. I don't buy leather anymore, but I was willing to do that back then. That was really all that was available that I could find in terms of barefoot shoes. But once they got to the ages of around 3 and 4, natural foot-shaped shoes weren't easily available back then. I found the ones that were most flexible, and again I'm going to talk about what barefoot shoes actually are in a minute if you're wondering, you don't know, but I would aim to find them shoes that were, and again I didn't know as much as I know now, but they were the most flexible, the most wide toe box. When I showed him those things, we went to shoe shops, so my daughter was willing to wear them. My son, we would go to shoe shops and he said all the shoes were uncomfortable. He wasn't willing to wear them at all. Well, he was willing to wear Crocs, which I'm going to share about, but generally he wasn't willing to wear any of them apart from Crocs for a little while. I remember so many times, we would go to so many places, and I remember getting to the point of going to a local camping shop because they had Crocs there, and by this time he wasn't willing to wear Crocs either. We would literally go to so many shoe shops and he just was not willing to wear any of them. I would get really frustrated. I just really wanted him to wear shoes and he was absolutely unwilling. However, as with many things with both him and my daughter, his deep connection with himself and his body helped me with my own deconditioning process. He actually taught me to see that mainstream shoes are actually not designed for the natural human foot or the human body. As neither of them ever went to school, but I'm talking about him here, so there were very few times where he was required to wear shoes. There was an occasionally particular homeschool outing that we would go to with others that he wanted to be part of, so he would be willing to wear generally Crocs there that if it required them. There was one other shoe that was a bit similar to a Croc he was willing to wear for a while. It's funny because back in those days Crocs were fashionable and they're having a renaissance again now, which is kind of interesting. So again, I wonder if you noticed, I remember when Crocs first came out, someone saying to me, I will never wear those, and how our perceptions of beauty change with fashion, not only with shoes but with clothes too. We might see something perceive it as really ugly. So we have this perception of judgment or of not meeting a need for beauty. And then when we see it a lot, that perception might change. We are deeply affected by the cultures and by what we see in our culture. I did also buy some flip-flops for him that had a back on them. I had some too. And again, but as I say, he was unwilling to wear any of those unless it was an event he wanted to go to, and he then was willing to for short periods of time. So from when he was, I would say about 8, he was unwilling to wear any shoes at all, hasn't worn shoes at all, apart from maybe once a year we'll go to an event that he will need to wear them. He's got these pink wildlings, he's got a pair of blue ones as well. So nowadays it might be occasionally with playing taiko that he might be required to do that. He also went to TAFE for a while, which if you're not in Australia is kind of like you can see it's a bit like a community college in a way, when he was 16. And again, because he wanted to go, he actually only wanted to go because he wanted to hang out with his friend, and so again he was willing to wear a pair of actually Vivos that his dad bought him that were too small for him. We've got birds flying right past me, flies flying right past me. It's a whole experience. Leaves flying everywhere. Nowadays there are so many barefoot shoes available for children. So many. But anyway, basically barefoot shoes and foot healing became one of my biggest passions. So from this point where I was frustrated in the shoe shop, I remember that exact day in the local shop, feeling frustrated, to actually, I'm so grateful to him. His presence in his body and his unwillingness to dissociate, to put up with uncomfortable mainstream shoes, and also many other disconnected domination culture aspects, have helped me free myself so much of my own DDC conditioning. There's a lovely breeze here. Again, you might be able to hear that. So now I'm so delighted that he was and is so deeply connected with his body that he was unwilling to wear shoes unless they were completely comfortable. I'm so grateful that he was and is so connected with his body and was unwilling to squish his feet into shoes that actually aren't designed for the natural human foot, nor to dissociate from his feet and his connection with the ground. And as a result, he has incredibly beautiful and healthy feet. I can see it's actually like a whole different foot compared to mine. I've been helping my feet heal for a long time. It's actually I can see his whole experience, not only his feet, but his whole body is different because of that. And I do want to say, of course, now with barefoot shoes, in many places, and if your child goes to school and you live in cold places, there are often really important reasons, protection and warmth, to wear shoes, and barefoot shoes that's so available now for children. So he really invited some big deconditioning in me. He invited me to deeply trust him. So I first found out about Wildling shoes in 2016, I think. They were founded in 2015, so they're celebrating their 10-year anniversary, as I shared earlier. I really wanted to get some for him, but by then he wanted to only be barefoot. And it was also a bit new, like, ordering shoes on the internet from Germany. I didn't have very much money at the time. How would it be if I needed to return them? So that was also part of the whole experience. Wildlings are my absolute favourite barefoot shoe now. I probably share that a million times while I'm recording this for you. I just love seeing his natural feet, wider at the toes, just as feet are designed to be, and so flexible. And if he climbs a tree, for example, I can just see how his feet are so free and strong to be able to grip the tree. But yeah, it really took me some years to go on that deconditioning process and to deeply trust him and his wanting to be barefoot, even when it's cold, even when the ground is rough. His dad too, it took us both some time. I remember when they go on a trip, his dad and their whole family every winter, and they go climbing big rocks and things. And I remember his dad was like, this year I really want him to get shoes. We both in that process. And I remember learning about Rob Greenfield's Barefoot Adventures and how he travelled the world barefoot. So I would love to share an image of that with you next too. I'm going to need to stop again because of my technical challenges. Invitations to be really willing to record this. So I will be back in a minute to share that with you. Hello again, I'm back inside as I don't have connection with the power outside and my laptop was running out of power. It's an interesting process, isn't it? Okay, so here's Rob Greenfield. I really enjoy learning about his life. He's passionate about travelling really lightly on this lovely place that we call home. So I remember when I first heard him talking about walking barefoot. You can see there's a lot of barefoot pictures, and I think this is part of it. It's really, because of the cultural conditioning is what we observe other people doing. So I think seeing other people doing things differently is really part of this change, to actually see, seeing barefoot shoes, seeing people barefoot. So there is Rob Greenfield. So in other words, I'm really grateful to him, my son, his unwillingness to squish his feet in any way. And this mirrors his connection with his soul and his unwillingness to be squashed by the DDC. And I remember the week after he was born, I had a song circling in my head, musical unconscious, I used to call it, from Toya Wilcox in the 80s. It says, what I thought was, I'm gonna turn this world upside down. I'm gonna turn reality inside out. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to be nobody's fool. I want to be free. I want to be me. Well, exactly. But when I looked up the lyrics, actually many years later, I found actually the words were also, don't want to be told what to wear. As long as you're warm, who cares? I want to be me. I want to be me. So what if I dye my hair? I've still got a brain up there, and I'm going to be me, and I'm going to be free. And he had blue and white hair for a year or two too, so I just loved that. So what else? Yeah, so basically, you've heard me say in many different ways, my children keep on inviting me to get free from old-fashioned and unhelpful cultural constraints. And I really see this, as I say, as a metaphor. And I'd love to talk more about that now in terms of the soul and the soul, S-O-U-L and S-O-L-E, and fashion and the DDC, and why I'm so passionate about this. And so that's why I'm sharing this next picture of why we find shoes attractive. I really like Andy Bryant, podiatrist, his Instagram account. So this is a post actually that he's quoting from someone else. Here it says it's ancient classism from prejudice against the lower classes who were barefoot workers. The superior wealthy class wore narrow, harder shoes. And so Andy goes on to talk about activism, and that often people say that natural foot-shaped shoes are ugly. And he says there, my response is that it's our cultural conditioning that leads us to think this way. And he talks about children already being culturally conditioned to choose popular shoe brands. So he says, let's remember narrow shoes are a social class system construct and nothing to do with healthy feet. So there we go. And so someone there in the comments says, Rangers, Pilates, social conditioning is huge with humans. We want to fit in with our tribe. It's funny, after wearing barefoot style shoes, which I initially thought a bit weird, I now find narrow shoes horrible looking. Yeah, and that's my experience now. I look at pointy shoes and shoes with heels, and I feel uncomfortable, and I look at them and I feel kind of incredulous. And the shoes that I used to look at and thought, oh my God, those are really strange, unusual, with a white toe box. I think that to me they look, usual. They're what I'm used to now. So it's so interesting, isn't it? And as if you know me already, I'm really passionate about really understanding cultural constructs, beliefs, perceptions, how much we are affected by our cultural conditioning. So, yeah, we don't see the unnaturalness of shoes because we're culturally conditioned not to. So we might think about foot binding in ancient China, and I'm going to go on to talk about that. And we might see clearly, that's clearly not a natural way for feet to be. But most people will see bunions and the other effects of wearing DDC shoes and just think that that's how feet are, and that with aging feet just become like that. So again, this is part of this process of getting free from conditioning and understanding what is actually natural feet. I'm going to talk more about these things in terms of colonization, more shoes. We think about colonization, and over years, shoes start off from being more just protection from weather or temperature or hardness, and then more and more happens. They become more stiff. The heels become they're heels, and then they get higher, and then the ends get more pointy, and all of these things actually make it harder to move around freely in the world. And they also mean it's harder to be connected to the ground, to be really comfortable, to be really present, to actually have present feet touching the ground, feeling the sensations of the surfaces that we're walking over, and actually even to being able to do things. Again, I see people, I'll do courses and I'll see people doing movement, and often like really natural movement, and I see them wearing big, what I call trainers, because I'm from England, and I'm amazed what we actually can do with shoes that are actually preventing us from being as strong, having the strength and mobility that we really can have with our feet. So it is a gradual process to reconnect. Children generally will need less time. They've been less affected, as with all conditioning. So next, I'd love to talk a bit about what barefoot shoes are, if you're not familiar. So barefoot shoes, here's a definition of a barefoot or minimalist shoe. They're so called because they allow your feet to move naturally the way they would if actually barefoot. The defining features of a barefoot shoe are that they have a foot-shaped toe box, flexible sole, and no heel elevation, 0 drop. So this is Anya's Reviews website. I love Anya's Reviews. I'm going to be talking a lot about her website, her Instagram, and her barefoot shoe finder. And I love this article. So there are links to all of these in the show notes, by the way. Everything I've shared with you today in the video, there are links to all of them. So to show you visually, if you're watching the video, she says, in order to keep our feet strong and mobile, our shoes must have the following characteristics. So completely flat shoe keeps the center of gravity over the heels, where we're most stable. Heeled shoes, even small heels like the ones found on tennis shoes or the flats shown above, push us forward and force compensations through the spine to stay balanced. So, yeah, I won't share everything that she's written here. I invite you to come and read more if you are interested. Foot-shaped. I loved how she said, we enter this world with beautiful fan-shaped feet and toes. Choosing shoes that follow the natural curves of the foot allow them to keep looking this way. And it also allows them to continue to function. Then flexible, feet are flexible, shoes should be too. Stiff shoes effectively bind the intricate muscles of the foot, muscles that will waste away if not used. Shoes that move with the foot allow those muscles to stay strong and supple, paving the way for a lifetime of stability. And no arch support. Flat feet can cause a lot of problems in your body, but sticking a support under there completely takes away the opportunity for your muscles to work. Then secure to the foot, so hence I gave up flip-flops many years ago. In order for your feet to do the job, they can't be worrying about a shoe falling off. Flip-flops and ill-fitting shoes cause you to grip your toes and slam your heel to prevent them from going flying. And then thin, the ability to balance is a hugely important skill for a human, and our feet are a key part of it. Thin soles allow you to maintain a connection with the ground, making it easier for you to move confidently and strongly. Thick soles prevent your nerves from sensing where you are in space, which leads to sloppy movement. There's so much research. If you want to go and dive, I haven't talked much about this part in terms of barefoot shoes because there's so much information out there, and if you're interested, I invite you to have a look more into this because there is so much incredible research about what actually happens when we walk either barefoot or with barefoot shoes. So here Anya goes on to talk about that. It's being natural, feet are the foundation. So she says foot function has a huge impact on our bodies. There is a kinetic chain running from our big toes through our arch, up our legs and into the hips and spine that affects everything we do as humans. If your feet can't move well enough to engage the rest of the chain, you get a whole host of issues you probably didn't realize were connected to your feet, like knee pain, back pain, etc. I used to have back pain even with the shoes that I was aiming to use before barefoot shoes became easily accessible, and I used to have quite a bit of back pain, especially if I was standing for any period of time. That just completely left. So she says they're cool, small change, big results. Foot support, if you have got particular foot challenges, it can be really important to go slowly. So again, she talks about this. She had very significant issues that invited her, which is how she got into it, which is often the way, isn't it? We have particular challenges and then we get passionate about something. So I love Anya. I had her as a guest on my psychospiritual podcast a few years ago, and I'll share the link in the show notes if you would like to listen. So then I'd love to look at the history of shoes a little bit. So I'm not going to go into this in whole detail. This website here, again, I've shared the link about how shoes have changed over time. Two things in here that really jumped out at me. One was in this website, feethealth.org. Again, if you search history of shoes, you can find lots of different things here. But here they talk about the craft of shoemaking became intertwined with cultural practices, symbolism, and social hierarchies, shaping diverse shoe styles across different civilizations. So apt, isn't it? That's still happening now. And also I found this really interesting, which I didn't know, but I'm always interested in ancient Greece in terms of how much that's affected colonization and us. Now I'm going to read out from this website. It says, the ancient Greeks, revered for their contributions to philosophy, art and governance, also found themselves entangled in a captivating discourse, the debate between the merits of going barefoot versus wearing shoes. This discourse, reflective of cultural values and societal norms, encapsulated a philosophical and practical dialogue that resonated through the streets and philosophic gatherings of ancient Greece. The choice between being barefoot or wearing shoes extended beyond mere comfort. It became a reflection of philosophical ideologies and societal norms. The dichotomy between the simplicity of being barefoot and the protection offered by shoes stirred discussions among philosophers, physicians, and citizens alike. How fascinating is this, that this was going on way back then? For many, going barefoot symbolized a connection to nature and simplicity. It echoed the teachings of philosophers like Socrates and Diogenes, who advocated for a life unencumbered by material possessions. Walking barefoot on the earth's soil was seen as a way to connect with the elements, fostering a sense of grounding and purity. How interesting, hey? Conversely, the use of shoes signified civilization and refinement. It denoted adherence to societal norms and indicated status and class distinctions. Wearing footwear was associated with the urban lifestyle and the pursuit of sophistication, often favoured by the aristocracy and those engaged in intellectual or political spheres. So relevant, isn't it? So relevant to today. And again, I'm going to share something that's also relevant. The debate extended beyond philosophical circles, permeating everyday life. Athletics, a crucial aspect of Greek society, saw athletes grapple with the choice between competing barefoot, as was tradition in some events, or wearing footwear for added protection and performance enhancement. Physicians also contributed to this discourse, offering insights into the health implications of going barefoot versus wearing shoes. Some believed that walking barefoot strengthened the feet and promoted natural alignment, while others argued that proper footwear was necessary for foot health and injury prevention. I mean, these could be conversations about today, couldn't it? The barefoot versus shoe debate in ancient Greece exemplified more than a practical consideration. It reflected deeper societal values, philosophical contemplations, and the constant tension between simplicity and sophistication, nature and civilization. This discourse continues to echo through the corridors of history, leaving us pondering the delicate balance between embracing nature and the allure of progress and protection. I thought that was absolutely fascinating. I wonder how you feel and what you think when you take that in. So next, I didn't find so much historically, so I thought I would look up ChatGPTs. I find ChatGPT can be helpful to garner together information, and I also acknowledge that the information might not be accurate, as with all information on the internet. There was this little timeline that I asked for and some images as well from the earliest shoes and the practical origins. which it talks about here, and then it moves to talking about classical and medieval footwear. So here it says, in ancient Mediterranean and Near Eastern cultures, simple sandals and wrapped shoes remained common. Over time, footwear started to signal social status. So we might say that that's potentially been going on for a longer time. But anyway, by medieval Europe, certain shapes became fashionable and symbolic. Elongated pointed toes were fashionable in several periods. The medieval poulain is the obvious example, very long pointed shoes that signalled courtly status and were at times politically and morally criticised. So that's from Wikipedia. I mean, look at the pointiness. We think of stilettos as pointy, but here, and they share some here a bit later as well. I mean, look how pointy. And in terms of actually practicality of walking, it becomes really clear, doesn't it, that wearing those signals you're not needing to do physical work. It's very clear, isn't it, that that's a kind of a status signalling. What else does it say here that I thought might be helpful? My understanding as well, it's also related to horse riding. I've read that elsewhere in terms of a heel. Initially was related to that in some places. In places like Renaissance Venice, platform shoes called chopines were worn to protect long skirts from mud. So again, the long skirts, the projecting status, the taller the chopine, the more the wearer's gait and mobility were restricted, and the more attendance might be needed. Platform shoes thus marked wealth and separation from ordinary labour. Here we go, it talks about it here as well. So high heels likely originated with practical riding footwear used by Persian cavalry. Heels kept riders' feet in stirrups. European elites adopted and adapted heels as a marker of status. By the 17th century, Louis XIV court is a famous example. Heels became explicitly fashionable and gendered in ways that shifted through time. So again, it's interesting to see that nowadays we think of heels being mostly for women, although this has been changing a lot in recent times. And I've really noticed in the changing fashions, so like in the 80s and 90s, men's shoes, in my experience, weren't very pointed, and I've noticed over the past 20 years that also many men's kind of dress shoes have become more and more pointed, and I've seen men's feet change as a result of that. I wonder if you have too. They go on to say, in the 20th century, the stiletto heel became emblematic of a narrowly shaped feminine ideal, with designers in the 1950s popularising the look. Came out again in the 80s, and actually I've seen that the pointy toe in particular is back in fashion again in the last, I would say, year or so. And there it says here, pointy toes repeated cycles. Pointy toes are not a single era anomaly. They appear again and again. Ancient Etruscan and Byzantine pointed shapes, medieval poulains, and again in the 19th and 20th century styles. Pointed toes tend to compress the foot. They often signal fashionability at the expense of comfort. And again, if you think about it, and I think of myself at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, wearing these really pointy shoes and high heels that would clearly hurt my feet. I felt uncomfortable, but I overrode that in order to meet needs for inclusion. At school, many people were wearing those kinds of shoes, and that need was so important, and often is in the DDC and particular schools, that overrode any connection to my body. So it's so interesting, isn't it, how that happens? The need for either inclusion or social status, or, these needs are so important that we will often override our own connection with ourselves, which again is part of a much bigger picture that I'm really passionate about in terms of the psychospiritual context, our soul, and the personality that we develop because of the family and culture that we live in, and how the extent to which our personality is a reflection of our soul or not. And so then I talked a bit about foot binding earlier on. In China, foot binding began centuries ago and became widespread from roughly the Song dynasty onwards, persisting variably into the early 20th century. It functioned as an aesthetic ideal and a marital/status marker, and it severely limited mobility and provoked lifelong pain for many women. And again, that's why it's so interesting in terms of different cultures, isn't it? Many people, and myself, I would say earlier on, when I was still conditioned into thinking that a pointy toe shoe was just how the shape of feet, I didn't see, but I could clearly see that foot binding was not a natural foot shape. But I couldn't see, because of my own lenses of conditioning, that actually the shoes that I was putting my feet in, I knew that they were hurting. And I remember, and how interesting is this? I remember when I was going to my degree ceremony, and we were up in London, and we were at, what was it called, the big old building, I can't even remember the name, but again, actually really symbolic of colonization. And I was looking for a pair of black shoes to wear for my graduation, and the only ones I could find, they were so pointy and they really hurt my feet. And how interesting is it that I thought it was about my feet? I thought, what is it about my feet that I cannot find shoes that are comfortable? And again, I would see this as part of the metaphor here, is that rather than thinking, what is it with shoes that they're not foot shaped, I thought there was something awry with my feet. And again, this is so much what happens in the DDC, rather than seeing that these systems, like families with only two parents, many schools, many of the systems in the DDC are not set up for optimal human health of people of any age. But often the blame will be put on the child who doesn't want to wear the shoes, the child who doesn't want to go to school, the child who's running around crying, all of these things, rather than seeing what's actually going on in the culture, that actually these are really healthy, apt responses. So it's very similar, isn't it? I also asked ChatGPT how footwear relates to DDC conditioning. I thought it might be interesting is what they came up with. So similar, shoes as visible social hierarchy. Very impractical footwear, extreme pointedness, very high platforms, ornate slippers, signaled that the wearer did not need to do manual labour. That separation of mobility and comfort from status reflects a culture that prizes visible signs of rank over embodied well-being. Gendered control through painful aesthetics, high heels and narrow pointed shoes have repeatedly been used to shape women's bodies and gait into socially desirable forms. But again, as I say, and sometimes it's also been for men, as we see in the Louis XIV time, and the increasing sense that men, and if you think about just all shoes nowadays, that men are wearing those as well. I don't know why I'm laughing. I do know why I'm laughing. We know from Aware Parenting, laughter is a release of fear and painful feelings. Fashion is a technology of conformity and signalling. When elites set extreme shoe shapes as desirable, others emulate them to gain status or safety. This creates cycles where discomfort is normalized and internalized as dignity or femininity. The Poulain was criticized and even legally curtailed at times because it was seen as excessive, yet it kept recurring. Technology, commerce and mass distribution, so this from the industrial era. So if you think about it, from shoes from being very much us making our own shoes, which I went back to doing that, made a pair of my own shoes, and I just love the idea that most of us cannot do that anymore. And then it would be much more, we would have a shoemaker, but it would still be, we'd be going to the shoemaker, to mass production. Again, of course, the more disconnected we are from actually being able to make our own shoes, the more likely we are to be affected by the cultural conditioning, and we also have less choice about actually finding shoes that are comfortable for us, that we want to wear because they're comfortable. And here it also includes consumer capitalism. You think about how many shoes most people have. And then colonization, labour and shoes. Again, textile supply chains behind modern shoes are tied to colonial resource extraction and labour conditions. Shoes both conceal the labour that made them and carry the social prestige that depends on that hidden labour. That is another layer of DDC, conditioning and the culture itself, exploiting people in environments while polishing a glossy surface for consumption. So there we go, and there's some pictures. So again, I think seeing pictures is really, really helpful. That's why I love, if you're on Instagram, I really invite you to have a look at pictures on Instagram of shoes, because that is part of changing our conceptions by seeing. I would also like to talk about trainers or sneakers, running shoes, runners, depending where you live in the world, because I think that's also been really interesting to observe, and particularly because we see trainers as like health promoting shoes. And look at these fascinating pictures. So late 1800s, early 1900s, and again, this is ChatGPT. It may not be accurate, but from what we see, early plimsolls, and I had plimsolls that looked like that middle picture when I went to school. They were called plimsolls in England. Canvas upper, thin, flat rubber sole were made for tennis and general sport. They were completely flat with no heel lift or cushioning. And then they talk about the 1920s to the 1960s, a big long period. Early running shoes like early Converse or Onitsuka Tigers in the 60s stayed very flat and flexible. Track athletes prize lightness, thin soles and minimal drop. So these shoes let the foot move naturally, similar to barefoot running. They didn't try to correct posture or gait, they simply protected the skin. And then here's the rise of cushioned, elevated heel running shoes. So in the 70s, there was a running boom. The jogging craze led millions of non-competitive runners, often older or less conditioned, to start running. Shoe companies responded by adding heel cushioning to absorb the impact of heel striking, the way most new runners land if they haven't run barefoot. So here they actually name some of these early ones, the Nike Cortez in 1972, or Nike is it pronounced? And then the 1980s to 2000s, heel cushioning and arch support became standard. The Nike Air Max 1 in 87 popularized visible air cushion units, and many brands built increasingly thick, stiff soles. Heel to toe drop or slope became about 10 to 12 millimeters on average. This shift happened largely because shoe companies were marketing to the mass public, not athletes. A raised heel reduced calf stretch and made heel striking feel easier for beginners, but it encouraged an unnatural gait and weaker foot muscles over time. And then the 2000s onward, so he's talking about they're talking about barefoot shoes. But if you've watched trainers, to me, they've just got bigger. And nowadays, I mean, they look like walking on a big balloon, many of them. It seems like the bigger and bigger they get, and the wider and the stickier outer. In fact, one of the women I'm really loving following, she shares about just how unstretched they are. I mean, for children particularly. Oh, dearie me. Anyway, let's see. That's it for ChatGPT. So I'm sending love if you've got any feelings in relation to that. So much love to you. Oh, what can we go? Gosh, I can actually have a look on this next one here, which is, again, Andy Bryant sharing this picture. So again, he's on the left. This is a natural foot shape. If you look at a child's foot, it's that shape. It's not that shape. And yeah, so what's he sharing about here that I thought might be interesting? The big shoe that has a carbon plate and or truckloads of stiffness and cushioning pretty much negates the traditionally thought of functions of the foot, which are providing shock absorption and propulsion. We know that feet do so much more than just shock absorb and propel, and they definitely are not a tacked on extra that needs or should be subbed out. As we move over our environment, our feet feel the variations and our nervous system computes how our whole body needs to react. For example, softening with more compliance for harder surfaces, stiffer with more spring for softer surfaces. The more shoe we wear, the less our feet can feel and the more sameness our body reacts to. We thrive on variation. I mean, this is the powerfulness of it. I think about that as well, and what I know about sunglasses and why I don't wear sunglasses and haven't for many years is similar there, because our bodies are so wise and they're taking in information. I'm actually taking off my lovely slippers as well, just to give a little bit of texture for a moment and stretch. So much about the DDC is meant in some ways protection, but in some ways a kind of almost like a deadening process from actually the taking in of information and the wisdom that happens through that. So yeah, again, here's Andy Bryant's account. Over time, all my barefoot accounts I follow, they at time to time show pictures of like healthy feet. Here we go. Oh yeah, no, that was that original. I love seeing pictures of more like people who haven't worn shoes compared to people who have. And I was looking for one of those, but I think I'm going to be showing one in a little bit soon. Soon. I just lost 20 minutes of recordings. It crashed again. You might, I'm going to use a judgment. You might think I'm being paranoid. That would be the judgment. But you know what? Whenever I talk about things that are freeing ourselves from the DDC, the tech goes haywire. So either I'm not willing to share it, or the DDC is not willing for me to share about it. So I'm going to come and share all of this all over again. I'm willing to be even more wonderful than the first recording, and I'm not willing for it to crash. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about anatomy. I'm not going to share much because there are a bazillion accounts now and websites where you can look into it, but I thought you might like to just see a little bit here or listen to a bit here. So this is from the Vivo Barefoot Kids Instagram. It's called How the Shoe Industry Fails Us All. Oh gosh, I said so many wonderful things. I'm really willing to remember them all. I said so many wonderful things about how in the DDC is set up to make us believe that there's something wrong with us, rather than seeing that actually the symptoms we're having are caused by the DDC. So this is an example here where often children are seen as having something wrong with them, like my son not being willing to wear the shoes, rather than actually the shoes are not a fit for natural shaped feet. And this happens in so many ways in the DDC, that so many children do not want to have certain experiences that actually are, that they're having the most natural, healthy response, but because of the DDC is seen as there being something wrong with them. So I really want to remember all the things I said that I really enjoyed. So anyway, here's a little bit here. Baby feet. You're born with feet that are perfect. 90% of babies arrive with healthy, flexible, naturally shaped feet, just as nature intended. So I will share all these links. As I say, this is from Vivo Barefoot.kids. I'm quoting directly from them. So these are some x-rays. We stuff those perfect feet into stiff, narrow shoes. Toes that should spread wide get squashed and movement gets restricted. I'm sending love to you if you have feelings when you see or hear this. And then with teens, we add fashion to the mix. Tight trainers, school shoes, trendy kicks. The bones in our feet don't fully ossify until we're 18 to 20. And then adulthood, pain is normalised. Bunions, plantar fasciitis, I don't know how to pronounce that, flat feet, numb toes. We blame age, activity, genetics, anything but the decades of foot binding footwear. So again, this is so interesting, isn't it? And I'm remembering that. Foot binding, how do you feel when you hear that actually most of the shoes available in shops are actually foot binding? I remember before I saw what I see now, when I looked at maybe Chinese foot binding, I saw that's foot binding, but I didn't see bunions like these pictures. I just thought, some people just have feet like that. It's the same thing again. When we are within a cultural constraint, we don't see things as they are. We see things as we're taught to believe them to be. So it's very powerful, isn't it, the conditioning around shoes and feet, healthy feet. With old age, so I'm going back to quote them, in older age it catches up. Balance issues, chronic pain and falls become the norm. Feet that were never given space or strength can't support you now. And it really becomes clear, doesn't it? Look at someone's feet, and we can many of us can get away with it for some while. Not me, because I really went full on with the ice skates and the stilettos and my foot shape. But yeah, it has a long-term effect. So I'm probably going to, actually I'm just going to keep stopping so that I don't lose this part. I thought I'd show you this as well and read this to you also from vivobarefoot.kids Instagram. 4 surprising facts about feet. Number 1, the strongest tendon in the body lives in the foot. The Achilles tendon, located at the back of the ankle, is the strongest and thickest tendon in the human body. It powers walking, running and jumping. Number 2, your big toe does the heavy lifting. The big toe hallux plays a critical role in balance, posture and forward motion. And I really noticed this as someone who has bunions because of what I put my feet in and also my particular foot shape, that I don't have. I can really tell the difference because of my toes really not able to do the heavy lifting that it naturally would be able to. Our feet don't stop changing at age 20. They keep changing, and also pregnancy can be a time of considerable changing. And then number 4, barefoot cultures have stronger feet. So there's, we can see it, but there's even research that shows lower injury rates, stronger arches and wider toe splay. Barefoot movement promotes natural gait, stability and strength from the ground up. So that's that. And then there's this, which is also an Instagram post from cat.cut.fit that's shared with Wildling Shoes. And she shares about how every step sends shock through your body, but not all landings are equal. Most shoes use thick outsoles to cushion impact, but an ultra-thin outsole keeps you close to the ground. By the way, these are my favourite all-time shoes, these Wildlings made with washi paper, Japanese inspired. Love them. More contact with the ground equals more muscle activation. Barefoot minimalist shoes help with better stability, improved proprioception, and the last thing in terms of less stress, moving up the kinetic chain. So she talks about more cushioning doesn't always mean more protection. Thick soles can make us move heavier and less mindful. They reduced muscle activation in the lower leg and foot. That extra load travels up the kinetic chain, increasing impact elsewhere. Highly cushioned shoes can change your natural running or walking mechanics and potentially lead to compensations in your knees, hips, or even a shoulder misalignment. The further you are from the ground, the more delayed is the sensation of impact forces from the ground. And with time, our feet muscles get weak because there's no need for our body to use them extensively. As a result, your knees start hurting. Most people then get even more supportive footwear, and instead of strengthening, you immobilize your foot even more. And so I see this in many places, not only with feet, but in many places in the DDC. Our bodies start communicating that the way that the systems we've got around them, whether that's shoes or many other systems, I'm going to call it a system, and our bodies are communicating to us that actually the system is not helpful or healthy for us. And instead of seeing that, again, the DDC trains us to see, no, something wrong with our foot or our X, Y, and Z. We need more. We need more of the system. And so the system comes in more and more and more. Our body's shouting louder and louder. And often this leads to really big symptoms, whether that's symptoms with our feet or whatever it is. And this happens so often with children. Children in many schools will communicate that the system is not the most helpful thing for them, but rather than us seeing in the DDC that particular school system isn't a fit for them, the child is often seen as there being something wrong with them, and so more and more system things happen to them that actually means that they are showing more and more, no, basically, this is not helpful for me. So that's why I thought that reel was really helpful to really communicate that. So next. So this is the third time now I'm recording this. Wowzers. What do you think it is? Take a guess. Am I not willing to share this? Or is the DDC not willing for me to share this? Because I got to the exact point where it crashed last time. So, wow. I'm really willing for this to be the most wonderful way that I describe it, and even more enjoyable than the last two. Okay, so this is Anya's Reviews website, and this is about the similarity between the soul, S-O-U-L, and the soul, S-O-L-E, and the effect of the DDC. So in the DDC, it's perceived that we're all very similar, and that we all just need the same things, the same, being taught the same thing at the same age, having the same experiences, doing the same thing at the same age. It's very much that conceptualization, which I would say has increased since mechanization. We've got products that all look the same. I would see perfectionism as being part of that DDC concept. And so rather than each of us having a unique soul that has unique gifts and talents and things that we're called to do, which when supported with an environment of love and will, we then develop a personality that's an accurate reflection of that soul so that we can be who we really are. In the DDC, most of us have these experiences where we're not really seen as the unique beings we are or supported to do what we're here to do. And so at some point in our life, we start experiencing more and more this contrast between who we believe ourselves to be, the harsh inner dialogue, the inaccurate mirroring, all the ways in which our personality isn't actually a clear reflection of our soul. And the Marion method work is about supporting us to become increasingly, to have a personality that is a clear reflection of our soul. So that is that process. And it's similar with feet. Because, I did not know this. I'm looking at Anya's Reviews website. If you're looking at the video, the link again is in the show notes. I did not know this. And when I discovered it, I felt astounded that feet are very, very different. I'm going to share more than one way in which feet are different. So if we think about it, it's very similar. In the DDC, there's generally, nowadays even, there used to be shoe brands that would have different width options. That's become less and less common now. So four different people will go into a shop with completely different feet, put one shoe on and have a very different experience. Actually, there are many different types of feet, and I'm going to share about that. And if you think about it, when we were making our own shoes, we could adapt our shoe to fit each shoe type. As it became more like we'd go to a shoemaker, yes, we could still, to some degree, have that adaptation of the shoe to fit our feet. Over time, we've become further and further, as with the DDC in many ways, further and further away from any ability to adapt a shoe to fit our feet, until nowadays there are so many barefoot shoes available. So, like for me, all those years ago, I just was trying to adapt the shoes that were available to me to somewhat fit my feet in the most way I could. And this has really powerful effects. So anyway, here's the three different ways in which feet differ, at least three. Number one is this shape. So actually I'm going to scroll down because I've already looked at this twice before. Foot type. So there are these different shapes. Again, if you're looking at the picture, look how different these are. The slope feet, like a slope, a mountain foot, a plateau foot, and a square foot. They're so different, aren't they? Look how different those are. Really, really different. So one of the most important things, if you're new to barefoot shoes, is finding out which brands fit your feet or your child or children's feet, if you have a child that you're getting barefoot shoes for. Different brands are designed for different types of feet. So here Anya shows some of the different brands for different types of feet and in terms of which shape fits which. Makes so much sense, doesn't it? Having a shoe that is actually designed to fit the shape of our foot. How much difference that's going to make in our comfort, when we're moving around throughout the day with shoes on, to a foot that's actually designed for our shape of feet. So here Anya goes through the different types of shoes. So shoe brands for sloped feet, for example. She also has her shoe finder where you can go through and put all the different things in and find the apt shoe brand. So here's examples here. But that isn't all. Gosh, this is so familiar. I've already said this twice before. There's also foot volume. What's foot volume? So I'm going to quote Anya again. On to the next foot feature. Foot volume describes how much vertical space your foot takes up. This can be at any point along the foot, including at the arch or instep, the ball of the foot or the toes, and it is independent of your length, width and foot type. Independent. So you might have slope foot and high volume, or a slope foot and low volume. My son has the highest volume feet of anyone I've ever met. I wonder if that's also partly to do with his barefootness or not, because I know many people can be barefoot and not have high volume, but it's very high volume, which also affects him putting on socks, which I've also shared twice with you before in a different reality. Most socks are also DDC socks, not suited for most people's feet. Socks we can have toe socks or foot shape, natural foot shape socks. I love Wildlings socks. I love them. I love that so in any barefoot sock, I can move my toes and move them freely inside the sock. So warmth and movement. How amazing is that? It's still, when I still put on a shoe and a sock, there's a dog wanting to get in, and I can move my feet around and my feet feel really comfortable even from the very first time I bought the shoes. I'm still so grateful and so happy and still kind of surprised, because I remember all the times where that was not my experience. So high volume feet are tall or deep and take up space in the top of the shoe. Low volume feet are shallow, and so Anya has low volume feet, and she talks about wearing, either in some shoes, wearing like an inner sole, and again you can get lots of different barefoot ones, and maybe tightening up laces. So with laces we have options again. So some shoes will have more flexibility in terms of how much we can adapt them, for example with volume, and others will have less. And so again, she goes through barefoot shoe brands for low volume feet and high volume feet. And then there's the third, what did she call feature? Third feature, narrow versus wide. It says narrow, average, wide and extra wide. If you think about these four people's feet, and these four people walking into a standard shoe shop and putting on the same shoe, they're going to have a really different experience, aren't they? Some people are going to be like, oh yeah, that feels quite comfortable. And other people are like, oh my God, I cannot even get that shoe on my foot. And so this is why you might see some people seem to be very relatively unaffected. I look at people's feet when I see their feet, and some people I see wear quite standard shoes with heels and pointy toes, and their feet seems to be not affected very much. So they might have a little bit of the big toe going in, but not very much. And often I would say that's probably because, for example, they have narrow feet. Their foot type is likely to mean that the shoe has less of an effect. Whereas if for example, you've got a wide or extra wide foot and you're squishing it into a shoe, you're likely to see there's going to be more adaptation. And again, we could think of this in terms of what we're talking about with the soul and the DDC, can't we? So we might think, for example, about highly sensitive folk like me. We're going to be more affected by the DDC in some ways. And that's going to show up in more ways. And again, the DDC will say, oh, there's something awry with that person, rather than, this person is lesser fit for this culture. This culture is a further awayness. So again, so similar, isn't it? So again, Anya shares Barefoot shoe brands for narrow feet and wide feet. And then she has this lovely map, which I've already shown other versions of you in different realities, this map. Does that other version of you remember this? Have deja vu? Have you seen these maps before? So these are from the narrowest shoes, which in this map are the Flux, to the widest in this map, which is the Soft Star Primal. Again, look how different they are. Shoe shape like that to shoe shape like these. And this is the point where it crashed both times before when I started talking about custom barefoot shoe brands. Yes, some people make custom barefoot shoe brands, and there is also a woman, this is actually where it broke. There's a woman who can take your standard, regular, whatever they are shoes, and she can make them barefoot. How amazing is that? So, there we go. That is the soul and the souls. And because I'm now in a different system, which is not the app, so that it doesn't crash, I'm going to need to go and find out how to stop this. Okay. So next is the understanding that this isn't just about wearing different shoes or going barefoot, that there's so many more elements to this in terms of natural foot health and also natural movement. So exercise, again, similarly, many forms of exercise that are seen as popular are also, when we look deeper, are not most helpfully utilising our innate body wisdom. I might do an episode on that some other time. Another element of this is actually the environments we live in. So one of the most well-known places to discover more about this is Nutritious Movement, which is by Katie Bauman. She's a very well-known person in this movement. And this is really about understanding how furniture also affects her use. So when we start thinking about, it's not only feet, it's actually furniture, it has a big effect on us. And again, if you think about it from the DDC, I often think about seeing documentaries and things and seeing completely indigenous cultures unaffected by the DDC. And then as cultures are more and more affected by DDC, often more and more furniture comes in, chairs and tables and shoes and more shoes and more elements that, again, may potentially prevent the most healthy and natural movement. And what I find really helpful, again, if we think about cultural conditioning and think about class and status, how much is that related to furniture? It starts off, doesn't it? We can, if you look at someone's furniture, still even now, we can still, and even though some of these elements like ideas of class are altering and changing, to there's still this sense that we can look at someone with like a, I don't know, think about a very ornate table made of gold leaf or something, and see that it really relates to what we've been talking about in terms of shoes, doesn't it? And the other thing is because, again, if you look at any Poe magazine, again, most people's houses, we have certain things, don't we? Dining room table and chairs, although actually that's become less common, hasn't it? But a table and chairs, sofas, chairs, things like that. And again, seeing different ways of living is really helpful, I find, again, because it's seeing different pictures, different lives, different people using their spaces in different ways. So I love, oh my gosh, why can I not speak today? I love looking at, why can I not speak today? That says it all, doesn't it? I love looking at getting inspired by other people using less furniture. For example, I'm sitting on a child's chair right now. I don't have any generally regular adult-sized chairs. I have some children's chairs for squatting. I have some stools. I have a lot of bolsters that I sit on. I do not have, and I've never liked regular chairs, even since I was a child. So again, I could see as like, oh, why doesn't she like chairs? Well, no, because my body knew that that was not the most helpful way to sit, the most healthy way to sit. So here are some photos I'm sharing with you, including things like position when we're weeing or pooing, so things to put around the toilet in order to change that positioning. Having things in a house to move on, so like yoga balls. I have what are they called? Rings to hang from. I used to have like a knee chair back in the 90s. I used to sit on a ball back in the zeros. So again, just having different ways of moving our bodies. We're not designed to be sitting still in these particular positions, and particularly for many hours. So I love these pictures. Again, we've got old second-hand tables and cut the legs off. We have short legs on a nice circular table, and we've got one like that. So again, just different ways of moving in ways that promote more movement, and more movement that's actually more how we're meant to live. Also things like this, climbing frames and so on. Pebbles. I love my pebbly bathroom floor. I just had my bathroom renovated. You might have heard me talking about it because the last one collapsed, not the pebbles, the floor below it. And so I have another one exactly the same because I love it so much. I love that texture. So again, we've talked about that, unless I talked about it in a different version that didn't get saved, that our body is taking in so much. When our feet are walking on different surfaces, it's giving our bodies information about the environment we're in. So the more our feet are cushioned, the less information we're getting. I see that as same with sunglasses. So again, it's having these different ways of moving. This supports our body to be more, I'm going to say more alive. That's not exactly apt, but more connected, more relating to the exact environment we're in rather than some kind of standard one. So that's the whole furniture-free natural movement thing, which again, there's so much that you can explore there if you're interested in that. I'm going to stop this again because I'm not willing for it to crash. So next is other things that we can use to support our feet to return to more natural health. And one of these is correct toes. Now I have a lovely story about this in terms of willingness. So one day, this is when I was in my early days of exploring my foot health, and I was noticing how my feet would feel uncomfortable every day. Still have bunions, less than I did have, but bunions. And I was like, really? I was doing lots of manual exercising of them. And I thought, I really want to find a way of my feet becoming even more healthy. About half an hour later, I went to the local farmer's market and I met a woman there who I knew. And she was wearing bare feet, and she had something that looked, I thought, what? She had something kind of in her toes. And I was like, what's that? And she told me it's correct toes. And these are correct toes, which you can see here, actually. There we go. Here's correct toes. Back in the day, they were, I've got, in fact, the old version. How have they got some... Here's the original see-through ones. That's the ones I had. And so she told me all about them, and this is exactly what I'd been looking for. And she said, oh yes, I happen to have a pair because I bought an extra pair in case someone wanted to buy some. So I bought them from when I went home. I mean, how beautiful is that? Actually, looking this up, I now see that they have a sport version and this thing that they're calling stable toe. So I'm going to be buying some of those. I found these so helpful. And again, I invite you to be cautious with these. So I have got a link to Andy Bryant, podiatrist, who I've shared before, his take on toe spaces, where he says, my concern that people wear them as a fix for all for foot dysfunction without addressing underlying causes. I certainly am an advocate for them in certain circumstances. For example, most forefoot pathologies, bunions, neuromas, bursitis, toe deformities, but maybe not plantar plate tears, and balance and big toe grounding and function-related issues. So I'll share again the link there, but he's also saying they're not all the same, they're not all necessarily helpful. He does recommend correct toes and talks all about those. So again, I'll share the link there. So that's correct toes, and these are one of the many ways that we can use again to support our feet to just in terms of just really it's kind of rehabilitating them from putting them in shoes that aren't healthy for us. And again, I wonder if there's some metaphors, similar things in terms of our souls and our personalities in the DDC. I suppose we could see the will work is a bit like that in the Marion method. Okay, so I'm going to stop this again so it doesn't crash. And then there are particular movements and exercises and again other equipment that we can use to support our feet. I really enjoy the Foot Collective, so they have things that you can buy, things like these little, I don't know what you call those, little things, little things to stand on, to do different exercises again to support our beautiful feet. So they have an Instagram that I really enjoy here too. Exercises, there are different foot courses. I've done some foot courses as well. So here is it called, maybe it's a beam, cork beam. There you go, the soulmate. Isn't that fun? A soulmate, would you like a soulmate? And again, you can see a type of barefoot sock, but with no toes. All types of varieties available. Those are a bit more well known as well because they're often used in things like Pilates. So there you go, there's the soulmate. There's also just, lots of different exercises. They also have their own, if I'm remembering accurately, their own toe spacers, and you can get all different kinds of equipment. Why are elite athletes training barefoot? Have you started to notice this? It's been quite big in the barefoot shoe movement recently. There we go, Ronaldo. Oh, look, quite a few of these. LeBron, Ronaldo and OBJ. I don't know who two of those are. And I think this is going to be what's really starts to help barefoot shoes become more well known once people like this. I also saw there's a tennis player also training in barefoot shoes. I think this is going to really start more and more people understanding that this isn't necessary here. Petra Fisher movement, I really enjoy her. I used to see a lot of her posts several years ago. So there you go, look, so again, these kinds of movements. But you look at a lot of athletes who have worn, most of them have worn traditional shoes. I mean, their feet just have really paid the price. Here we go, look, here. There we go. So this is what my son's feel like as well. The amount of movement and strength. I mean, look at that. Talk about strength and mobility. And here's one, rewild your feet in 5 simple steps. Yeah, I don't know about you, but whenever I see, so again, this is why I think we can, if you are on Instagram, we can use Instagram to inspire us, because I see all these things and I go, oh, yeah, okay, I'm going to get out there and do more things like this. So again, this type of foot is seen as just normal. This is the result of wearing DDC shoes for decades. That foot would not look like that. And you can even see it's like the lack of life energy moving through feet when they wear standard shoes. So anyway, as you can see, lots of really interesting information there on the Foot Collective. And they have a website as well with their products in there. But also, again, lots and lots of, so many, once you start looking, there are so many amazing people doing amazing things. Right, I'm going to pause again because I'm not willing to lose this. So in this next section, I wanted to make recommendations, but I realise I've pretty much recommended to all of the people that I really enjoy most particularly. So Anya of Anya's Reviews. I really enjoy her Instagram as well. What I love about one of the things she does, although she doesn't do it so often now, is like having like a regular shoe and a kind of a, you know, a fashion look in terms of beauty, and then finding a shoe to replace it with. So this can be really helpful, particularly if you enjoy beauty and maybe enjoy fashion and you're wanting to find ways of doing that. And again, though, you might find, I think it's very understandable that you might look at these shoes and they don't meet your need for beauty, because culturally we are led to see that for women a pointy toe, a high heel is is beautiful, and a big wide toe box is not. So it really, again, it's a really helpful process to really look at how our perceptions, our judgments, our ways of perceiving things are really affected by what we see around us, which again was why I chose to make this video in terms of showing you lots of things, because I really believe so often it's not only the hearing, but they're actually seeing other people do things. So some of the other people I've mentioned, Andy Bryant, podiatrist, the Foot Collective, there's lots that I really enjoy. I'm also just recently started following, Instagram recommended her, Barefoot Brit Official. I really like her, really like her. And you might particularly resonate as well if you are a parent. She shares a lot with her children as well. So look, see again, you might not think that's pointy, but so she does really fun ones like, why on earth do people think these shoes are acceptable? She did one recently about trainers or runners or joggers, and she went into a shoe shop and showed actually and particularly for young children, to not be able to move their feet at all when they're moving. I mean, it's just, oh, there you go, I responded to that one. You can see I really enjoy hers. The other thing I love is it seems like all of her family members wear barefoot shoes. So her sister got married, and it seemed like all the bridal party, so many people wear barefoot shoes in her family. The other day she shared a reel about 10 of her family members all wearing barefoot shoes. So it's like, you know, her children, her partner, her mum, her sister's children. It seems like lots of them do. I think her mum and dad. There we go, this one. I love that. 10, and she's English as well. And I really like how she shares. Just, oh, look, my favourite. Oh, I haven't actually looked at the Wildlings website with you. Maybe I need to do that before we finish. Those Wildlings wellies, I've actually been living those for a lot of things. I mean, we have had a lot of mud. But look, 10 family members all wearing different barefoot shoes. Isn't that just so yummy? I love that. I wish I'd love to find the trainers one. Yeah, so I just really enjoy her account. So I invite you to, again, find ones that really resonate with you, that you find interesting. Where is the one I was talking about? Oh, and look at those Converse. I mean, when I see those, I wonder what you see now. I just kind of, I squirm a little bit. I'm like, oh, because I can imagine myself trying to put my feet in those now. Oh, ouch, 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 ouch. And I'm sending love if you have some and you love them. My daughter has some, she loves hers. Here's the one I was talking about. Look at this. So she goes to look at shoes for children, and she just shows how they're like blocks, and I think even more so, just like absolute blocks, not shaped like a foot, cannot feel the ground, and feet are squished. And look how, anyway, I just really enjoy her. So many recommendations. Again, all of the links are in the show notes. And next, I'm going to just share in more detail about my foot journey. So I will see you then. Again, I'm going to pause so I don't lose this. And so in this last section, I'm going to talk about my journey and a bit about my family. And I thought, whilst I talk, you can have a little look at the Wildlings website. You might see how they're my favourite ones, and if you can see the little video in the corner, you can come and watch the link. Look how squishy they are, look how bendy they are. I love them. For me, they're such a barefoot feels so bendy. So I might just scroll through them you can, while I'm talking, so you can have a little something visually for your visual viewing pleasure, to meet your needs for beauty. So I'm going to talk a bit more about my own journey here, because as you can tell, I am so passionate about this. If I wasn't into aware parenting and the Marion method, the other things I could have seen myself is actually doing something like Anya does, or wooden toys. That was another thing I was really passionate about. But I'm just really passionate about this, as you can tell. And actually, for many years, if you're familiar with my Marion method work, what I did when I first woke up in the morning with my inner loving mother practice was that she would send loving presence and compassion to my feet. So for a long time, that was my experience of love pouring out to my feet. I love you, feet. Sending loving presence with each breath. I felt that expansion and the love and the relief. And I remember about 7 years ago, I was doing that practice and I felt pain in the roots of my teeth while I was doing it. And you think about feet and roots, there had been a lot of tending happening. And so I was reflecting back and being a teenager. I have actually got photos of me as a teenager wearing my big whites. So I had a pair of white stilettos, like the highest one, like a 3-inch heel, like white, the pointiest of the pointy. So tense. I was so tense. Tight. I had a tight dress on as well. So my inner loving mother and me sent so much love to my feet for doing that to them. And I really reflected back, and this was a big kind of aha moment for me back about 7 years ago, that I, as a teenager, I was most tense. I was most scared. I'd had birth trauma, I had traumatic separations ×2. I had lots of trauma as a baby and a child. And by this point, as a teenager, I was so tense and I had so many painful feelings in my body. And I was wearing these high stiletto heels and I was shaving my legs, which was removing all the beautiful, vital sensory information, which was actually helped me connect with my environment. So I was doing these two things with the shaving and the heels, which actually disconnected me even further. So here's me, terrified, disconnected, kind of floating around. And actually, when I actually first stopped shaving my legs some years ago, it was I used to do it in the winter, and then I was riding my bike every day, and I'd be riding my bike and I'd be feeling the sensations of the wind going through the hairs on my legs. And there was so much sensory information, so much pleasure actually from these sensations, that I decided I was not ever going to shave my legs again. And if I reflect back on what I most needed as that teenage self, it was some sense of connection. Imagining having, and I can see outside the beautiful wind and the trees, is this sense of a connection. Here's a way our bodies receive information, that sensory information. I was not having that, or it was much reduced because of shaving my legs and because of having my feet in these very pointy, very high shoes. So again, really, in terms of what I've shared with you today about how we experience these painful things in this DDC system, and we have more and more what we might call symptoms, which is, in other words, our body, our feelings, our mind, saying, hang on here a minute, this is something awry here. Well, what happens is that is interpreted in this system as being something wrong with us rather than a wise response to actually the system. So yeah, that 7 years ago moment was so significant to actually realize that I was longing for connection, groundedness, presence, to feel a sense of safety on the ground. That was so significant. I remembered, and I think that's part of why I'm so passionate about this, because I see what a difference these things made for me and what a difference it would have made for me to have barefoot shoes right from scratch. I share another picture when I had a traumatic event on my 5th birthday, and I shared a picture, so you can have a look on my Instagram if you're watching this in September 2025. And I thought it was very significant because there's a picture of me on a little tricycle, and I have an image of a footprint on my t-shirt, and I'm wearing little sandals that I can already see, even though, relatively they're not like this. They're already squashing my toes in. And I saw how there's this parallel process of what the DDC does on so many levels. And I think our feet is the most significant, but on so many levels, the type of clothing made of polyester, for example, ties, tight waists, all the things, underwide bras, all the things actually are really not helpful for the most natural movement of our body. And this is not, if you know me, I have a no for judgment and shaming and guilt and all of those things. So for me, it's not about, of course, not about judging or shaming ourselves if we wear those things. It's the same, of course we do. We live in a culture where this is what we were, number one, told to do, told was beautiful, told was necessary, see as beautiful. We are so deeply affected by the culture we grow up in. So on this particular day, going through this process, I also remembered all the years of ice skating. In particular, I remember one particular brand of ice skates that I got. My mum and dad bought me these lovely new boots. My old ones had got too small, and they were a particular brand. And I still remember putting them on. I remember a particular day putting them on. Every day I would cry. They were literally like rocks. They had no movement from my ankles. They squashed my feet. My feet were cold. They were horrific. That really had a significant effect on what happened to my feet. And so again, I just felt the pain. Again, my inner loving mother and me, we sent loving compassion and apologies to my feet, and to all the younger parts of me experienced so much pain. I remembered in my 20s when it was big chunky heels as the fashion. It was the 90s, and I remember walking from the train station to the university when I was a research fellow and then a lecturer. Again, I remember, oh my gosh, every day, my feet hurt, walking these long distances in these heels. I mean, they were probably about that big, chunky, and actually quite rounded. They weren't pointy by this point. I had moved away from the really pointy. I was moving further and further in that direction. But still, I mean, days and days and days and days and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of putting my feet in shoes that did not fit and that were not helpful for me. I feel so sad when I think of that. I feel so sad when I see that happening to others. And again, with zero judgment, I see little children who are just learning to walk, and parents with the most wonderful of intentions, because of course we don't know these things, putting them in really hard soles so they can hardly move. They don't have the natural flexibility that the foot is meant to have. I mean, I feel really sad. That we live in a culture that makes it really hard for us to retain our natural connection with the ground, our natural flexibility, our strength, our movement. And this is why I'm so passionate about this. This is why I'm going on and on about shoes. By the way, these are my slippers I have been wearing on and off today. Very lovely. Very sad. And I think, shoes have been a control pattern for me, if you're familiar with that term from aware parenting. I love shoes, but it's also a control pattern. And I think part of it is because of, and particularly now, so I'm going to share, actually I'll come back to this. I will come back to it. Back then, I kept wearing those boots. I kept buying boots with heels. I didn't seem to find much choice. And I loved the look of them. I loved them. I didn't listen to my feet. I kept inflicting pain on them. So me and my inner loving mother sent loving presents to my feet for all of those experiences of pain and disconnection. So in my life journey, and again I would see this as a deep parallel, I would see, and I wonder if you see this too, my relationship with my feet and shoes has completely paralleled my relationship with my soul, with my who I really am, with connection, with my connectedness to the ground, to others, to my willingness to feel, totally parallel. So when I moved to Australia when I was 30, at the beginning of 1999, my relationship with my feet had a big change then. So I was living from England to Australia, so it was a lot warmer. So I started going barefoot a lot. Mike and I were going to the beach every day, went barefoot a lot. I live in a very alternative town where lots of people, where going barefoot is not, you can go barefoot around the town and people will not blink an eye. It's quite common. I still did, though I had some Birkenstock. I had Birkenstocks then, and I wore flip-flops as well. But again, often I was barefoot. And then as I shared, I then got into the barefoot shoes and negative heel technology. I wore 5-toed shoes for a while. Wasn't a lot of choice, as I shared right at the beginning. I did what I could with what was available. So I remember for some years I literally only had 2 pairs of shoes. I had in the summer some Havaianas, which are like a flip-flop or a thong with a strap around the heel. So I found some with a strap around the heel, and they have I would say they're quite close to a barefoot shoe. They do have a slight lift in the heel, but it's actually quite minor. And they have the background, so it's not the flip-flop. So out of what I could see in the shops, it was the closest. And then an UGG type boot in the winter, which again definitely had a sole going upwards, but it's the minorest one I could find. Definitely not a wide toe box, but not pointy. So literally I had 2 pairs for years. This was me who loved shoes. I'm making up for it now. I just got to the point where I was no longer willing to ever put my feet in shoes that would hurt my feet or would prevent my feet from moving freely or that would disconnect me from the ground. So in the Marion method terms, that was my big no that I got to. But then I started exploring on the internet, and barefoot shoes started to become more and more accessible. So even though I think I'd found out about wildlings, I think they were the first ones I ever found out about. But at that time, as I shared earlier, I didn't have very much money and I felt cautious about ordering online. So it wasn't until a few more years later that I started with field grounds shoes. So my mum still wears those. There's a lot of things that I really liked about them. And those were like really my first ones. I had a few, maybe about 3 pairs of different ones. So they have, and over the last several years they now have lots of varieties. They used to have, I think, 2 or 3 varieties when we first discovered them. My mum still wears, she's got a few pairs, she loves hers, she loves them, they're really a fit for her feet. But nowadays, oh look, I'll just keep going, you've been on that page for a long while, haven't you? Nowadays I only wear my wildlings. Well, I do occasionally wear, I've still got some field grounds that I might occasionally wear in particular situations. I can show you which ones I've got if you want. I've got those ones, they're really lovely. And the wellies, oh my God, most comfortable things ever. I love them. So this is the autumn-winter. Let's have a look at all, I'll take him off, all categories, and I can show the accessories as well. Hello wildlings, if you're watching. So back in the day when I was doing my loving mother practice, I felt that deep grief. So as I say, all the years I didn't listen to my feet. I squashed them into shoes that were too small in the toe box, too stiff in the sole, and too high in the heel to help me stay connected with the earth. And that I was feeling that pain in my roots, and the grief was in exact energetic and felt sense match to that pain I was feeling. My roots hurt. And also, so again, this is part of the bigger picture. Growing up in the DDC, I had little or no connection with my ancestors, no connection with the indigenous people of Britain that my ancestors once were. I have Irish, English, Scottish and Norwegian ancestors, so little connection with their traditions, with songs, with rites of passage, with ways of being, original earth-based traditions that had been carried on for generations. I really felt the grief, and so there was some time, not only that day, but for some period, I really went through that process. My inner loving mother holding me, honouring and acknowledging all that was lost. I think that's part of, again, in the Marion method work I talk a lot about in the DDC. We go around often not consciously feeling the amount of loss, what I call love hurts. We've experienced that we have lost so many of our indigenous traditions, wherever your ancestors come from. Many of us have lost that. And the root pain left. The root pain left. There was an image of a potato came, actually. This was the whole story. Potato, the roots. I imagined my feet being deeply connected into the earth. My jaw relaxed, the root pain left. And so that's part of why I'm so passionate about these. And the inner loving presence work, just as Barefoot Shoes and all these things that I've been sharing with you have helped me so much from healing from past disconnection and loss, freeing myself from DDC conditioning in so many ways, feeling the grief in response to that the disconnection creates, and the rage in response to the domination. And that's how we increasingly return to our true soul nature as love and will. And so in so many areas of life, I love discovering our innate biological wisdom as humans, and where our cultural beliefs and practices may be set against that. And so returning to that quote from Wildlings right at the beginning, the smaller the difference between shoes and no shoes, the freer the feet. And my quote that I adapted from that one, the smaller the difference between biology and culture, the freer we are. And I'd love to share a bit about my family as well. So my mum is 93. She once said she was never even be willing to wear flat shoes even. So I've loved seeing her journey. She started off with my encouragement. She wore Birkenstocks for quite a lot of years. I think, again, after moving back to Australia, I encouraged her to wear those. She moved out the other ones into the Birkenstocks. And then for about the past 5 years, she's been wearing field grounds. And her feet, just through changing her shoes, she used to have all kinds of foot issues. And, she's 93 and it helps her stability. I think she would be in a very different place if she hadn't done that. The actual shape of her feet, all of the different corns and things she's had have reduced so significantly. So even just changing a shoe, if someone is older, again, it can often need to be a gradual process, can make a radical difference in terms of health and well-being. So please bear in mind that many people need to go gradually through more minimal shoes, and some people, for various reasons, might never go really minimal and might always need a more cushioned sole. So please always hold that in mind, that everyone's different. So you already know about my son, his barefootness. My daughter wears regular shoes. She didn't go to school, so in the summer she often didn't wear any shoes. And again, in those early years, I tried to find shoes that were most similar to what became Barefoot Shoes. She did do ballet and still does a bit and was on point a lot, so that has affected her feet. And we talk about it. She's absolutely not willing to wear barefoot shoes at all. The father of our children, so he got into the 5 fingers at the same time as me. Him and his partner did. But then didn't for a while, and then he's now into barefoot shoes as well. So he loves Vivo Barefoot. He has some Wildlings as well. So you remember me sharing with Sunny and the trip away, he took some while as well, like me, to really free ourselves up from those conditioned beliefs as well. So It's a journey. It's a journey. So here's a little summary as I show you the last of these. Oh, by the way, here we go. I'll just show you some more wildlings. Here are the sandals. It took me some years to wear the sandals because, again, my conditioning was like, I'm going to use the word weird. Those are really unusual. I've never seen anything like them. They really don't meet my need for beauty. They still don't. Well, do they now? Yeah, I don't think I see things in that way anymore. I'm just like, I love mine. They are the most comfortable thing ever in the entire history of the world for my feet. I love them. 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 So I might go through and show you which ones I love as well before I do a little summary. So I'm just going to go through. So this is what I was talking about earlier on, the tanuki. The tanuki is my favourite shoe in wildlings. So they have all different colours. So this is made of the washi because it's like wearing virtually nothing. You can go in water and they dry really quickly. They're so flexible. So again, you can probably see. Can you see? No, they don't show. Just so flexible. Lovely colours. They have the red ones as well. So I'm making up for all those years of having 2 pairs of shoes because I love shoes. I have got quite a lot of pairs of wildlings now. I'm actually going to sell some too because my feet have gone up a size since I've been wearing them. As I said, I love the rain boots. I love them. I love the sandals. I love those. And more recently, they've adapted and got some different soles, which you might have noticed. So, where are those? They might be on the front page, I think. No, not there. I think we've already. I hear these ones. I have some of these, and I really love these. These seem to me to be a bit wider. My feet with the bunions, the wildlings are, more on the narrow side for me. But to me, these new soles seem to be wider. So these are a gorgeous fit. And within them, I can wear their beautiful socks. So I'll show the accessories. They have these gorgeous, lovely socks. And you get other kinds of things as well, inner soles and various things too. So that is my little wildlings passion. And I also did get, hang on, I just bought these recently as well. I know we're going into spring, but I knew they would sell out straight away, which they did. So I got those for next winter. They're like my dream boot that I've been looking for forever. So there we go. That's my love of shoes. Thank you for sharing my passion with me. So I'm going to do a little summary. Shoes are deeply related to cultural conditioning and beliefs about status, movement, and connection to the ground. Each foot is unique, like each soul is unique. I believe that supporting our shoes and our souls to be most whole, most true to themselves, rather than shaped into other shapes by the culture, and disconnecting from our presence and our innate interconnectedness makes a huge difference in our lives and in our experience of interconnectedness. Thank you so much for sharing in this with me. I have so enjoyed it. And so much love to you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode or watching it. If you want to learn more about my aware parenting work, my Living Aware Parenting podcast link is in the show notes. My website at marionrose.net and my Marion method courses are there too. My social media, my Instagram is _Marion_Rose_. And the links in the show notes as well. I've also got my links to Facebook and signing up for my newsletters, all of those kinds of things. So if you enjoy what I share, I invite you to come and hang out together more. Thank you again so much and see you in the next episode.